Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
I'm going to use that word. It's a word that can make people uncomfortable. It's the F word, and here it comes. Fear. Fear holds so many people back from moving their lives forward, and it could be a fear of anything. Fear of a blood test, fear of getting on a plane, fear of public speaking, which typically in surveys is the number one thing that we have a fear over, but it's big and there's a way to overcome fear. It's actually pretty simple to do with hypnotherapy. And we have a certified clinical hypnotherapist with us. She's with the Center for Inner Wellness, and Becky Waters is back on the program. Hi, Becky. How are you?
Hi, Steve. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you back. And yes, fear is, if we just take a second and think about what we've feared in the past. You could probably go on for 30 seconds making a list up in your head. Well, I was afraid of that. I was afraid of that. More times than not, it was a waste for you even to worry about those things, but we do worry about them. Why don't we go back to why we do? Before we talk about how to overcome fear, why do we have fear?
Why do we have fear? Yeah. If, it really goes back to the subconscious mind, because that primitive part of us is designed to look out to keep us safe. And so left to its own devices, we're always looking out for danger. And then we grow up with, we learn to be afraid. And so it's just really trying to keep us safe. But then those fears can hold us back. Like fear, sometimes they're like a fear of wasp or something, and you've never had an experience with a wasp, but you have this fear of it, and who knows why. That's a phobia, actually, because there's no known reason for it. So somewhere in the subconscious mind, it's gotten the wires crossed. This little insect that a million times bigger, it's going to hurt you. And so hypnosis is a way to go in there and just uncross those wires. And then, other fears, like fear of speaking up, fear of doing something different. It's just that subconscious mind trying to keep us safe, because anything we haven't not experienced is danger to that subconscious part.
You said phobia. Can you say that again? You said it in relation to the wasps or spiders, whatever it is. You said it's a phobia because why?
It's a phobia when we don't know the reason why. A fear is like if you have a fear of dogs, but you had an experience earlier in life or some time that a big dog jumped on you, and so you're afraid of dogs. That's logical. There's a reason. So that's a fear. A phobia is you may be afraid of wasps or afraid of flying, but there's no known reason. A lot of people have a fear of flying. They come to me and they were fine at one point, and then all of a sudden something happened, and then they're afraid of it.
So what if you're afraid of needles? Medical needles, right? But you don't have anything that connects to it. Would it be a phobia?
If it doesn't have anything to connect to it that you can think of, it's a phobia.
Now, hold on just one moment. What about if there's something that happened in your childhood that you don't even remember, but it's in your subconscious? Is it still considered a phobia because there was a fear of it, a reason for it back in the day?
So, in a session, if they could not come up with had no known reason, we treat it as a phobia, which is a whole different way of treating it. And then, as we're talking about it, they may remember, oh yeah, it was this little thing that happened, which often happens as we're just working on anything. Other things will come to mind, memories that they'd forgotten.
Wow. So does it automatically turn from a phobia to a fear once you identify the connection?
I guess technically it would.
Tell me my works. I'm trying to put it all together because I never knew what a phobia was considered. But all right, so now it's a little bit more clear. And
Yeah.
when you have the fear of something, well, or a phobia, I guess, with hypnotherapy, typically you can help somebody overcome that.
Oh, yes. Yes. Those are actually some of my favorite things to work with people on because, the subconscious mind is always about keeping us safe. And whether you know the reason or don't know the reason, there's the line, the wires have gotten all crossed up. And so we go in, and I wish it was easy enough to just open it up and just kind of go tickle in there. But through hypnosis, putting the conscious mind on the back burner, we can go in and drop in those positive suggestions. What's the benefit of not being afraid of bees, for instance, or what's the benefit of being able to fly? I mean, on an airplane.
Hmm.
um, and and imagine yourself being in that calm, relaxed place when you encounter those, whatever it is that's causing you that fear. It helps to reprogram the subconscious and teach the subconscious that it's safe to do those things.
So you need to identify that it's safe to do those things and what the benefit may be to not have
Yeah.
to.
Yes, because everything we do is because of what it's going to give us. We always do. I mean, nobody will decide, I'm going to do this because I think it will, screw my life up.
Right.
We always do, everything we do is because it's going to give us, basically make us happy, give us what we want.
Yep. Some kind of positive reason, positive outcome,
Right.
whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Interesting. Is it the same amount of time typically for most fears in terms of sessions, or everything is completely different? Everybody is completely different.
Every issue is different. Every person is different. So generally, um, I've worked with fear of flying people, for example. Maybe they'll come in for 3 to 6 sessions, and then be okay. Or some people, they come back periodically, or when they've got a flight
Mm.
planned just for reinforcement. It's all different because we're changing habits. The good news is it's a habit, so we can change it. We can reprogram it. The bad news, it's a habit, so it's going to take time.
I heard a story through a friend about a pilot that, I mean, here's a guy that, he's got hundreds of people every day in his hands, their lives. And he had a fear of heights,
Oh,
and especially driving along roads that were near a cliff, because he had a situation back in the day that involved that. And he had to go to hypnotherapy to overcome that. But you would never believe that here that, this accomplished pilot is afraid of driving on the road near, a cliff or whatever, or a fear of heights going on a roller coaster. You'd be like, oh, I'm not doing that. No, but he's 30,000 feet up in the sky.
it's interesting because we all have our strategy. Somebody that has a fear of heights will have a certain way that, okay, it's okay. I've worked with a client that it was okay to be, this high, but if you go that high, no, that's not good.
Mm.
Or speaking, in front of groups, public speaking, it's okay if it's only 40 people, but if it's a whole auditorium, that's not okay. So we all have that strategy.
Did you ever hear the acronym for fear? There's a bunch of them, but
Mm,
what is it? False evidence appearing real.
right. Yeah.
And when you think about those words and you put them all together, it actually makes a lot of sense because
Yeah.
your fear is based on something that's not true. Could be in your mind, but it appears to be real.
Right. Perception
Yes.
uh, is everything.
Reality. How does that go? Reality is perception. Oh, perception is reality. Your
Right.
perception turns
Yeah.
into the reality. What you
Yeah.
perceive is a real thing for you. We have instant feedback coming in from Diane in Camden, New Jersey. And she says, I recently got divorced and fear being alone. I think it's because my parents divorced when I was very young and my father left. Does
Mm.
that sound reasonable? And is that something that you can help with?
It definitely sounds reasonable. And yes, hypnosis can definitely help with that.
Hmm. In that one situation, what would be the process? You would put her in a hypnotic state. And again, we've talked before, you can check other podcasts that you're in full control. It's not
Right.
like, Becky's taking over your mind. It's you're just in a almost a meditative state, same kind of state that you're in just before you go to bed, or if you're driving and you can't understand, wait, how did I get there? I don't remember even getting here, but I drove there. You're probably in a hypnotic state, right?
Right. And so, there's a a memory of something that happened early in life. And, when we're, that age before 7, 8 years old, everything goes in as gospel truth. And so mommy and daddy divorced, felt alone, and we don't understand that at, say, 2 years old or even 7 years old, that it was because mommy and daddy had their own issues. And so we innately know that if something's wrong with mommy and daddy, I'm going to die. We just know that. And so we have to make it about ourselves. I'm not good enough. It's not safe to be alone. I need somebody around me, or whatever our personal lie is. And you can, notice what that is from the things that you tell yourself, that chatter about it. And so we talk about what is her particular strategy for feeling alone, and the memories, how did she feel, what it brings up, the fears, and then, address that, change them around, um, in hypnosis.
Hmm. I love what you just said there, Becky, in that you bring up those thoughts. How does that resonate once again with you when you feel that you're going to be alone? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Is that something that you do when you hypnotize someone?
We talk about that in the cognitive part so that I can get what their particular strategy is and how they want to feel instead, how they see themselves being now. Because, when it brings up that old fear, it's that old younger version of, hey, I don't feel safe.
Hmm.
Um, and so helping them understand that that was the past, now it's now. And so how do you want to feel now as an adult?
Do you have situations, doesn't even have to be fear based, where they come to you, they have no idea. Here's what I'm feeling, here's what I want to feel or don't want to feel. I got nothing for you. Here you go. Here's the ball. Run with it, Becky.
Well, again, we really look at what is it they want instead. They know I'm feeling this that I don't want to feel. What do I want to feel instead? And how will that look? How will you know, um, when whatever the issue is resolved? What will it look like? What will it feel like? And begin to, um, practice that way of being. Because when you, in that relaxed state, when you think about that, what it is you want, the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference. It's just a great way to mentally rehearse how you want things to be.
Hmm. The mind is amazing, isn't it? It's so good, but so bad sometimes.
Mm, yeah.
Did you ever have a situation where you needed to be hypnotized?
Um, I've often wished I could find somebody just like me
Really?
to help me.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go there. Do you feel that because you do what you do, you might not be able to be put in a hypnotic state?
No, no, not absolutely not.
Okay.
Um, I, one reason why we need other people to help is because when we're in the middle of the quicksand, we can't see the way out.
Yep.
Um, you know, it's really easy to help other people because, you can identify with them, or you've got some kind of experience yourself, and you're not in the middle of it. And so you can help them, guide them to see the way out. That's really where the coaching comes in. Um, and it's just hard to see our own stuff.
Oh, 100%. I just got a visual. I'm not big into sports, but you think about on a football field and one player, maybe the quarterback, and he can only see so much because there could be another player in back or another player. But imagine if he was able to get cues from somebody flying over the field instantly. We got a guy there, we got a guy there, end zone, blah, 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 game.
Yeah.
Right
Wouldn't
away.
that be great?
Yeah, but it's giving you, the clarity, the perspective that you can't, no matter what you do, no matter what that player does, he's never going to be able to see everybody at every moment, every second. But if he somehow could get that information from the person playing whatever flying above in instant time, he'd be able to react and the game would be
Yeah.
over. He'd be, a champion at that point.
Yeah. Just like driving a car, we all have our blind spots.
Exactly right. Yeah. And Becky's the mirror. In a lot of ways when you think about
Yeah.
it, because you are,
Mhm.
showing us what we are, but the mirrors around you are showing you where you can go or can't go in
Right.
some parts there.
Mhm.
Uh, Typically, how long is a session when somebody works with you?
The first session is an hour and a half because we need that time to really build that tool of hypnosis. And then sessions after that are an hour.
Okay, typically an hour.
Hmm. The therapeutic hour.
I I've been through it, so I understand it. But
Mhm.
when that moment comes where, the session is over, all good things must come to an end. How do you end it?
Yeah, good question. So we say it's the second session. We've come in, and so we discuss what went well, what didn't work, what worked, what came up, kind of talk about that. And then when we do the hypnosis part, the relaxing the mind and the body, um, just really talking to them about things that we've already talked about. Um, Dropping in those positive suggestions. And then I always end with, you know, our dreams are so important, and the mind is working on things as we sleep. And those early morning dreams, the brain is um, venting out things that it's worked on. And so encouraging the subconscious mind to just vent out old ideas, old thoughts, old beliefs that no longer are serving who we are today. And then I count the person up and out of hypnosis.
So just by account, you pull them out of it.
Yeah. And so it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, eyes open, wide awake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, eyes open, wide awake. And in fact, if you ever are like find yourself like waking up like when you're driving, or feel yourself dozing off, or maybe you've been meditating or something, it's always a good idea to count yourself up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, eyes open, wide awake, so that you come back to that waking state and not be in that suggestible place.
Hmm. Interesting. Like if you're very tired and you find yourself dozing, would that also be helpful as well?
Yes. Um, and if you're tired like that, get up and move. Just
Sure.
do some stretches, some deep breathing.
So when I was hypnotized a few times, I had my eyes closed. That was my choice. Nobody said, "Yeah, you got to have your eyes closed." But is that something that everybody should be doing when they're hypnotized?
I normally encourage them to close their eyes because that um, cuts off all the visual stimuli, which will cut off a lot of the input that's coming in. So that way you can focus more on the inward experience.
I 100% agree because if I think back to those times, I don't think I would have been able to go there. It was almost like I was watching a movie of myself when I was a child. Um, Pretty vivid. Interestingly, I've seen the images before in my mind. Like if I think back to that time, lived in that apartment. I was 3, then I was 4.
Mhm.
I have them, but under hypnosis, it's like the picture was crystal clear. Where if I were just thinking about it, it would just I see it. It's a little fuzzy. Not bad reception, but
Mm,
vividly clear when you're under hypnosis.
yeah, because everything's you're really, really focusing on, and everything else is kind of in the background, kind of like putting a spotlight on that particular memory.
What do people tell you when they're under a state of hypnosis?
Well, generally I'm doing the talking.
Well, I mean,
And
like even after, if they say, "Man, that was really that was wild," and this is what I saw. This is what I saw.
yeah, yeah. So after, I count them up, I do always ask, how was that for you? Anything you want to share? Some people, will kind of share the vision that they saw or what they experienced. Some people are like, no, I'm good. It's like, okay. Um, it's all over the board.
Yeah.
They'll have an aha or a connection, make a connection of something that they'd forgotten or
Yeah, I would be the first one to talk about it because I wouldn't want to see if it's real. Like I would want you to, this makes sense to you. I mean, because what do you know? The rest of us have never been typically hypnotized, so you don't know if what you experienced was true hypnosis at that moment.
yeah, especially, the first time. It's the biggest question is, am I doing this right?
Yeah, yeah.
And actually, yes, you are.
And I guess everybody's different, so it's not like you can go online and what you will experience, exactly. No, because everybody's
Right.
different.
Right.
Hmm. Have you ever hypnotized friends or family?
I have, in fact, my first non-stop smoking person was my husband at the time. Um, and so he let me practice on him. Um, I would not recommend it. We are not encouraged to do that because you really don't want secondary relationships going on. Um,
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the dynamics there because you know each other so well.
right.
But did it work?
It did work. The advantage was that, you know, we lived together, so he got a lot of thinking about it and, talking about it. And so he was pretty had already decided that yes, he did want to do this. And um, it worked.
Hmm. So when somebody has a session with you, do they get the video? Do they get the audio?
Um, with stop smoking people, I generally always record the session. I don't make a practice to record every session. Um, it's much easier doing it by Zoom to record. And so I do sometimes, and sometimes I don't. In person, it's a little bit harder.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. Do you find that people listen back? I have a friend had uh, some anxiety being in places like restaurants.
Mhm.
Um, and there was a situation in the last year that kind of led to that. And the hypnotherapy was very, very beneficial. And progressively, after a session or two, we would go out, and in the beginning, she'd say, "I don't know if I could stay here." And I'd be like, "It's okay. There's nobody in this restaurant," and there wasn't. Um, but now it's like, all right, do you want to go get Mexican food? Yeah, no problem. Let's go. And I'm talking, this is a very short period of time, but she has told me that she has listened back to the audio from the session.
Yeah, because the audio is very helpful, and not every client will listen to it,
Agreed.
which is frustrating. But um,
Okay, let me just jump in there. In my session, I remember a lot of things vividly, and maybe it would be beneficial if I listened to it. I don't know that I want to because it got very emotional. And I don't know if I need to go there again. I remember everything. Um, Probably should listen to it, but I don't know if I want to.
well, it depends. Because when I um, do the recordings, it's very specific to whatever the issue was that time.
Yep.
And so, it's just a matter of, if you listen to it that week to reinforce what we did in that session, that is helpful. Now, if you want to listen to it like a year from now, it may or may not be as helpful.
Right. Uh, I love what we talked about in fear. You definitely brought up some points that I didn't even think of, and which I think a lot of people think about it. It
Yeah.
resonates. It's kind of the baseline for a lot of us. We have fear of everything, no matter what. It's always going to come
You
up.
know, and really the fear below all the fears is the fear of, can I handle this? Will I be able to handle whatever it is? The fear of not being able to handle it.
You think about that, that's real. That's every situation. It really is. Centerforinnerwellness.com is your website. Somebody reaches out to make an appointment. Can they talk to you for a little bit? Complimentary, just kind of figure if it works.
Right. Yes, you can call and we'll talk, or you can sign up for a discovery session, a Zoom discovery session, and find out if hypnosis is something that will work for you.
I'm just going to say, have no fear. And I really mean that. Do not fear hypnosis. So many people do, because they have these images and just believing all these myths, but the stuff works. And usually at some point, you'll probably realize after you tried everything else, you'll go to hypnosis. Right. It's kind of last on the list because you feared it. Basically, we need hypnosis to not fear hypnosis. Maybe, I don't know.
There you go.
Yeah. Becky, always a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you so much. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.